And a pleasant Wednesday evening to everybody tuning in to this special roundtable as part of the Hambletonian Societies and the Meadowlands Racetrack Partnership here with In the Money Media. We're happy to be discussing Hambletonian Day this Saturday at the Meadowlands. It is Saturday, August the 3rd, 2024. 16 races on the card, including the prestigious $1,050,000 Hambletonian, the $525,000 Hambletonian Oaks, and plenty of other great stakes we're going to discuss. And in fact, I'm already here at the Meadowlands early. I am sitting right now in the photo finish booth here at MetLife Stadium and the racetrack behind me. I'm already so excited. We're here a couple of days early, and I'm going to be joined later on this week by Jessica Otten, who is one of the TV talents here at the Meadowlands. Jess, thanks for joining us on what I know is a very, very busy week.
Thanks for having me. Yes, it's a very busy week. You have me up a little bit past my bedtime, it feels like. Lots going on, but really excited to chat about some really great races on Saturday. We have kind of mixed up our the way our races are. The Hambo will go first before the Oaks. So curious to see how that will go. Excited to see the rest of the races.
Yeah, we do have a unique order to some of these races, and we're going to discuss them in a particularly interesting order, too, so we'll try to keep you updated on those races. But the 16 races, first post time is noon, and the big one, the Hambletonian, race 12 at 4:45 or so. But some of my usual co-hosts joining us include Mike Pribozie, and Mike, I'm sure, has those usual Chanel bags behind him there, hoping to add some more this weekend with a couple winners.
Well, no Nijinsky to help me, but there might be a few other long shots I can look into here. So we're always looking to get the bag. I'll be there Saturday at the Meadowlands to check out Hambo Day. You just can't miss it.
All right, Cotolo, another one of the usual co-hosts here joining us. And Ray, Mike, I'm trying to convince him. Ray, come on, here's three of us going to come out here Saturday. You can still join us.
I mean, you know me. I'm not really going to decide until the morning of, and then by the point I decide, the Hambletonian will have already gone, and I'll be like, I got to start planning for next year then.
We can pick you up if you want.
Well, we'll talk about it. We can talk about it.
Well, she did such a great job with us the last couple of weeks discussing the adios out at the Meadows. We'll just add 4 letters, and we'll bring in Cheyenne Christman for the Meadowlands for this Saturday for Hambletonian Day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's very exciting. It's been so cool just to come out here and meet all these trainers for the Hambletonian Contender Series with US Trotting. So be sure to check all of that out, as well as our coverage for Hambletonian Day.
Yep, and Cheyenne will be on track, of course, as part of that job she's got with US Trotting Association, which means, Ray, you're still the only one that may not be coming because Garnet Barnsdale, like me, is already here on track right here tonight.
I don't know. Do you see his background? That doesn't look like the Meadowlands to me.
Here I am, yes, working away in the Clyde Hurt workshop. Maybe not an old guy's game anymore. These days are getting very long, but happy to be on your show, though.
Well, we've got quite a few races to discuss, so we're going to try to jump into some of these, and we're going to roll through a couple of these early races pretty quickly, and that's going to start with race 2. That's the Cane Pace. That's the second leg of the pacing Triple Crown, the 3-year-old Colt and Gelding Pacers, and Mike, well, legendary Hanover, tough to get around.
Real tough. I think he's a Meadowlands lover personally. Since he's gotten the couple races over the track, he's taken off and kind of went otherworldly. Kicked 24-4 in the Elim, 146-3 crush job in the final, and I don't see anything in here that's going to touch him. I mean, this is I don't know a race you want to wager on. Just kind of hang out, watch him go.
Well, Garnet, I know you and I did a little bit of handicapping together this morning while we were with the journalism workshop, and I think we both agreed legendary Hanover pretty tough in the spot.
Yeah, and if you want to cash a 460 exactor, you can put Captain's Quarters there second, I guess. But I don't think there's any need to waste a lot of time talking about this race. I can't see betting against legendary Hanover.
Yeah, Jess, that's the only creativity I have is maybe Captain's Quarter for second is the third choice in the morning line in the exacta. But legendary, I think might be okay here.
I have to agree with everybody there. I just don't see how you get around him. He was so impressive in both that elimination and the final, and the way he handled the final too. It takes a lot for a horse to make that bold move up the backside and sustain that during the 3/4, and then to just pull away from a really good group of horses. That's a short field, so I just don't see how he gets beaten here.
Cheyenne, do we get to 5 for 5 here for legendary?
Oh, absolutely. And I totally agree here with everything Jessica said. Has been just quite impressive. I mean, 146-3, that's a new stakes record for the Meadowlands pace. I just cannot see any way to pick any other horse besides him.
Ray, we save you for last for a reason, because if anybody's going to get creative, it's usually you. So
I don't know how creative you can get inside of a 5-horse field where one of the horses very clearly is a couple seconds faster. Though I'll say, in a short field like this, Captain's Quarters finally gets a good draw. He's coming in off of a qualifier. He seems like he's good enough to go with a horse like legendary Hanover, but I don't really know what kind of an upset or price you'd even get on the second choice inside of a short field like this. That just makes it a tough contest to bet on, or at least have an opinion on this early. But I do think it could be close between those two.
Kevin Plouch is tuning in on YouTube, and he's just here to find out how much I have on the Astros tonight. Kevin never told me that was the bet of the day, so I have nothing invested there.
Aren't they playing the Pirates?
Mary McDermott is tuning in on Facebook. Peace, love, and Jessica Otten. Gosh, I gave her a shout out on that Spirit of Mass broadcast for her birthday of a plane race a couple weeks ago, and I get nothing. So
You did say that. I do remember her telling me that.
Race number 5 we'll get to next. Another one we're going to discuss briefly. But the Shady Daisy 3-year-old filly Pacers. It is an intriguing field of 11, and of course the 11 horse in any of these races is going to start from that second tier. Jess, how do we get through this 11 horse Shady Daisy?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I was expecting a few other horses to show up in here, like It's a Love Thing maybe to come back, but then I remember she's Kentucky eligible as well, so she'll be heading there for the Sire Stakes. I'm really impressed with Caviar Belle. She was, a couple of races won in a row in the beginning of her 2-year-old season, then she come up a little sick. She ended her 2-year-old season really dominant in the 3 Diamonds. She gets a good post to work with. She was airborne and came flying home late in the Jerry Silverman on Meadowlands pace night, and I actually kind of thought she was going to get beat in that race. And then last time out, she was, aggressively handled off the gate to get away well. 50-1, 26-3. She gets an inside post in here. And I think that inside post advantage over, can I get a loop Rocket Deo as well? I think that's going to really help her in this field.
Cheyenne, Rocket Deo was a good upset pick I took at the Meadows earlier on this year, 5 for 7 so far this year. I know Kevin Plouch wouldn't listen to me that day, but, nice win last time out here at the Meadowlands. I'm looking to that one for a potential upset, but what direction do you go?
I am looking for, can I get a loop for the potential upset here? Followed that live cover behind my girl EJ in the Adio Volo and was just really impressive. Finished second, and that race went in 148-4, which was actually went faster than the Adios itself and set a track record and a stakes record there. Well, that only finished second to that horse. So I'm hoping now you get post 5, you get post 6 again. So I'm thinking that this horse is going to do really well. Maybe we might be able to follow behind Caviar Belle as well, and might actually be able to go on by.
Mike, you were, of course, out there with me last weekend at the Adios, and we see a couple horses coming from the Adio Volo, and can I get a loop Rocket Deo? A lot of horses here that have seen some Meadows experience this year.
Yeah, and if you watch that Adio Volo, Lulu, which is the 11 in this race, is the other horse for Ron Burke in that race, basically acted as a rabbit. I mean, went 25-4, 53-4 to the half and set it up for my girl EJ. Can I Get a Loop Loop was a beneficiary of that also because she was off that wicked pace and was able to kick for second. I just think Caviar Bell's another. I mentioned this in the earlier race. This horse races better at the Meadowlands than anywhere else, and there are horses that are like this. I believe that she is one of them, and her best races lie at this racetrack. She's drawn perfect. She kicks better than the rest of these. I think she has a class edge over most of them, and I would probably be able to use her pretty. I think as a single on a lot of multi-race tickets.
Right.
I mean, I do kind of wonder how that horse coming up the inside of Caviar Bell in that most recent race would have posed a threat. But, I mean, just otherwise, she has her quirks and she has her races where she hasn't really shown up, but she also hasn't been 100% inside of those races. And just seeing every mile that Caviar Bell has gone over that Meadowlands surface so far this season, the only way she loses it is if somehow Yannick just gets into a really bad spot trip-wise. And, I mean, he hasn't from recent starts with that inside draw. She should just be going forward anyway. It's really this is a tough spot to see where she really gets into any type of traffic.
And Garnet?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the stats. Caviar Bell in 9 starts at the Meadowlands has 6 wins in 3 seconds. So Mike is bang on. She's my best bet of the day and a single for me. And, if they beat me, they beat me. But I don't really see it happening in this race.
That's right. Garnet was telling me earlier he thinks he might be one of the rare ones to have that as his best bet of the day. So he'll be all on Caviar Bell here. Alternatively, John Rallis, always different opinions welcome here. Caviar Bell, one of the face to play against. He'll take Rocketdale along with me. So that's either a good thing, John, either great minds think alike or misery likes company. We'll find out. And, Mary did hear the birthday thing. I started pointing at herself when I said it. I wish I could have seen that, actually. But well, by the way, I forgot to mention, because I know he's listening in as well. I am, of course, right now in the here at the Meadowlands in the photo finish room. And photo finish operator Jared, who's been here at the Meadowlands a couple of times, coming over from Yonkers this past winter, he texted me. He said he's watching it. So, Jared, hopefully you're enjoying your background here. And he's even given us Hambo opinions. 4913. So he is going to take TCI to be Private Access, Carl, and Highland Kismet. And he says it's a photo for the ages. They're all separated by a nose.
Of course, the photo finish guy would think it's a photo for the ages. Like, you want your name to be attached to that.
Don't talk about Ray about Hambletonian photos.
Jared has rooted openly for triple dead heats at Yonkers many, many times. He has not quite gotten there. We almost had one the other night, but he never got to do one. So maybe he'll get to do one here. And I know the previous photo finish guy in this room was very proud of the fact that I filled in for him tonight. That Bulldog went 146. He was very happy to be back in his spot the next week when he went 45-4. So, yeah, definitely a lot of pride amongst those photo finish operators. But let's dig a little deeper into the card. Let's go to the 8th race, the Sam McKee Memorial. And, Mike, it does seem like we say all the time, look, when these top open pacers get together, trips matter so much. The horse that gets the best trip is usually going to end up winning these races. But a buck bet right now is pretty darn sharp. And, yes, the trips have worked out nicely, but those are 2 pretty darn good wins against pretty good groups in the last 2.
It's true. I think he's dominated the division, and maybe some of the ones that used to aren't quite what they were, like Allywag. It's My Show really hasn't come back at 4 like maybe – that he raced at 3. And some of these other ones just don't really class up. Like, Backstreet Shadow has made 1.7 million, but he does most of his best work on a small track. He can race well here, but I just think a Buckabet's going way too well right now. He's too quick at the end of the mile, 25-2. I mean, he's going 47 every week. A lot of these horses can't even come close to that. So, I mean, I don't give out a lot of chalk, but so far, that's what the form has told me.
Yeah, Cheyenne, a race where, eventually somewhere on this card, Garnet and I have discussed it. We always see upsets on Hambo Day. There's going to be some big price at some point along the way, but I just don't think a Buckabet's the one that gets beat either.
I totally agree with you there. This horse is going to be going for his 3rd win in a row. And in that Houghton, he was just very impressive. Not only that, though, he followed the live cover behind Charlie May, tipping out 3 wide at the top of the stretch and kicked that last quarter in 25-2. I just find it really hard to see him getting beat, but I also like the number 10 in here as well. So, that horse might be up for consideration, too.
Oh, Cheyenne's taking the old easy way out of the number instead of having to say the name. It's okay. I interviewed the owner after the race one time, and it's Sire Stakes race, and that's how we're confident of Vuka Fallis. So, Jess, Vuka Fallis has been very good there at the Meadowlands, but post 10, always tricky.
It is very tricky, but I'm going to go back with a bucket bet Hanover, and something that Andrew Harris has said is, this is a very good group of horses, and it does really come down to the trip, and he's very happy with the way his horse has been driven. He's been handled aggressively off of the gate. If you go back to when he was 2 and 3, they never really liked to leave the gate with him because he would put those miscues in. Now he's confident when he leaves the gate, and that's become very versatile, two-dimensional for him because it gets him in play as well as puts him in a spot where the trip has always seemed to work out for him. I just don't see them beating him again. I think that his races are perfectly spread out. I think he's been managed very well. I think that the inside post is also to his advantage here. I also like Vukafalis underneath as well as Ken Hanover. He's just been really unlucky. Ken Hanover has with a couple of bad posts that have turned into bad trips. Now he's going to, get some really nice post relief with the rail. As for Vukafalis, he's going to be towards the outside of the gate, but those graduate series has prepped this horse perfectly for the older division. I mean, he did a lot of the heavy lifting in that Houghton. I mean, being parked past the quarter into a half of 53 and 3 is no joke. And he held in gamely, just simply got outpaced by some fresh legs. So it's definitely 2 over the 10-1 for me.
All right, Garnet, there's our proof he's listening. Jared says triple dead heat, please. So there his rooting interest. Derek Givner says, apparently I'm going to get good price on all my horses because none of you like them. So Garnet,
well, yeah, after how his horses raced last week, I don't think we want any piece.
I would have burnt
Who does he like here, Garnet? Can we identify this price?
I'm not sure who he likes, but I'm on a bucket bet as my top pick, but I'm not sold that he's a lock so much as everybody else is. I like It's My Show's last race, parked the whole way, 4th only beaten 3 lengths. I think It's My Show is going to be sent forward this time from the 6th hole. And I don't even mind Allywag Hanover in here I think they're both going to get sent forward. And when you get forward position, good things can happen. So for me in this race, I'm going to be 3 deep using a bucket bet, but not a single for me. I'm going to try It's My Show, maybe Allywag to beat him and hope for the best there. But like I said, I expect both those horses to get sent forward, leaving the gate. And if you get position up front in the afternoon in the heat, like I said, good things can happen.
Well, or maybe in the rain. My show hasn't raced up close this year. I mean, really, he's been from off it most of the year.
Well, I mean, his second start back, he was on the lead in a 53.5, though, Mike.
I also would argue, as the resident Oak Grove expert, that when this horse was at Oak Grove, they realized, wow, we probably can't send this horse all the time because they tried sending him, and then he had to send way too hard, and then he lost. And ever since then, they've been managing this horse a little differently. I actually kind of agree with you in this way, Barnsdale, because I don't think necessarily Scotty has to fire forward. He might just because he has so much speed to his outside, because Vukafalis, has to send. Ruthless Hanover has to send. Allywag has to go and get forward. And already right there, you have the outside 3 that are going to try and be barreling inside. And so it might be in Scott's cards to want to go forward and sit into that stalking spot because It's My Show. The fact that he was even able to rally from off the speed last out, in my mind, shows a different horse than what we remember him as a 3-year-old. As a 3-year-old, he was just speed along, measure the race right, hold on at the end. But if he actually has a little bit of fight at the end of the mile now off of trips, that puts him as in play as it does a bucket bet Hanover, because this race is going to be fast. And so it's just going to come down to who trips out at the right time and then who's close enough to the front where then their late kick is going to be able to gobble up whoever's in front. And that's assuming Vukafalis can't carry his speed, which he's carried it real well. Ruthless Hanover's another that can carry his speed real well. I think this is definitely a race, too, where if you're watching the track through the first 7 races, you can get a good sense on how well the speed is holding, if the speed is holding, if maybe horses from off the speed are having a better time gaining ground, because little pieces like that might help inform how this race is going to unfold, because it very easily could just be down the road to a record of some kind, or it's they go way too fast, the bottom comes out, and everyone is charging in.
Remember last year what happened? The track turned into a distinct closer's bias, from the middle on.
Mm-hmm. So and even the inside.
You couldn't be anywhere close.
I think It's My Show is best when he can be forwardly placed and then covered up. I think he really strives off of the cover. I mean, if you go back to the 3rd leg of the Graduate, he was, he had the lead at the quarter and then he got buried and he just had no room. He finally got room late and he paced him strongly. I think if he really saves himself for the last quarter of a mile, I think he can really do some damage. Like Ray said, if he's the one that gets a bucket bet trips, he can definitely outpace them. He's just as talented as the rest of them. It just hasn't worked out in his favor.
Well, Derek Givner is going to give us some of those prices he's saying. He's saying, it's my show. He likes a bit. I believe will come from off of the pace. And John Rouse points out Alleywag getting his first win of the season in this race last year. And speaking of this Saturday, Garnet, you, me, Dave Little, we were chatting about this a little bit earlier this evening. Looks like warm, as we always expect Hambo Day, but possibility of thunderstorms throughout the day. So that might be something to keep an eye on.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that can change the track in a hurry, too.
We will hope for dry conditions. We'll have to keep an eye on that Saturday. So
what hasn't it said, though, it's going to rain in that humid area at the heat of summer? It always is supposed to rain, and it still doesn't. Let's remember.
Well, we will find out for sure on Saturday when it comes around. But race number 10 will go to the Dr. John R. Steele Memorial here. And I should probably start to mention, because I always confuse race names and what the conditions are. This is the free-for-all. It's the Mare Trot. So the Mare Open Trot, and Jess, you have to think this field's pretty happy to see not the top Mare Trotter in there with Jiggy Jog taking on the boys in race 11.
Yeah, I would have to say so. This is a race where I'm going to use a little bit of price. I honestly am a firm believer that Call Me Goo was winning the Hambletonian maturity before she went off stride. They took the shoes off of her that night. And I think when Andy kicked the earplugs, she was looking for her footing and wasn't able to get it. I think she was just a bit too light on her feet. So I'm curious to see what they'll do. I think her dominating the Maryland Sire Stakes, giving her that confidence back into her. She's just as good, if not better, as the rest of this field. She might not have all those major stake wins under her belt like a couple of these other horses do. And I don't really care that she draws towards the outside of the gate, because she was parked every step of the mile in that Hambletonian maturity. And that was at an added distance. She gets Dexter. Dexter drove her last year. The matron, I think the outside post will inflate her price here. So I'm going to go with Call Me Goo.
Well, Ray, while I did not pick Call Me Goo, it's worth noting, of course, you have called some races down there in Maryland at Rosecroft and Ocean Downs, and this is a horse with all sorts of Maryland connections. That's always a good sign here, good rooting interest for Call Me Goo, who should be a fair price in this race. And I think it's a race where I like a price as well, but a different one.
No, certainly. We can kind of talk about that later on, too, with the Hambletonian Oaks. I mean, the three horses that won in the eliminations were not from any of the big barns that we always talk about are dominating inside of the trotting world. You know, John Bootenshane got a win, Annie Stobie got a win, and then Vernon Beachy got a win too inside of those Oaks. So not only is it nice to see horses like Call Me Goo be able to break through, because just that change in the guard always feels nice. I think we've become accustomed to how good, the PA sires are, the New Jersey sires are, that when we see a horse come from a different state, from a jurisdiction that admittedly isn't as big of a market as some of these others, it's hard not to, be interested and want to root for them. Especially, I'm with Jess on this. I'm a firm believer that Call Me Goo was also going to go forward if she didn't break stride. She looked loaded on the helmet inside of that race. But does that mean that she's going to win inside of here? I mean, I think that's a price. That's going to be a price decision for me. If she's anywhere around like 5-1 inside of this race, which I don't know if that's necessarily the case, I'd argue that's a great price to bet a horse like her on. But let's not forget, Special Way was incredibly hampered inside of that Hambletonian maturity too. Timmy got into a really tough spot and then had to kind of choke the horse back and then immediately try to regain momentum. And that's a lot to ask of even a really good horse. So I feel like this time around, he's going to be a bit more careful in terms of how the trip unfolds and be sure to give her racetrack the same way he was able to so methodically inside of the Graduate Series. The question there then is, where's MM's Dream? Because MM's Dream is one that can kick home really fast. But, if she's 4 or 5 lengths off the leader at the top of the stretch, she's shown that at times she can't outkick certain horses, or her kick doesn't suffice overhauling whoever might already be in front. And so in this race, I feel like Special Way is going to get a good drive. I think she's going to get a good trip inside of this race too. We're talking horses that are in form that could outrace their odds. Call Me Goo certainly is in that conversation. But let's not forget, all of this also hinges on how in contention MM's Dream is at the top of the stretch. Because if she is battling for the lead, turning for home, she's going to kick as hard as any of them. And, Call Me Goo so far has been the only one to outkick her.
Well, Mike, that is 3 votes so far for prices. And we know we're going to get one from Garnet because we can do a little bit of math here. It's Hambo Day. He's a Canadian. Warwizinya's in. 12 So, Mike, before Garnet gets to that, who do you like?
I like Special Way. She's gonna look around and be like, "Where's the boys at?" Because that's where she's been racing versus the boys most of the time this year, and she would have been in the Hambo against the boys last year. I just think that trip last time wasn't what they wanted. I really liked her that night, and they went forward, ended up stuck, had nowhere to go at the top of the stretch, just absolutely was running them over. I don't think that she could get a worse trip than that. So she's drawn perfect. She has to deal with MM's Dream. She has to deal with Call Me Goo. I think they both have a chance. You get the returning Bond in here. Nobody's even mentioned that horse. I mean, that horse has only made $1.4 million. Comes out of the qualifier.
Zero this year.
Zero this year, but that doesn't mean I doubt she's forgotten how to go. So, I mean, she's a problem in the race too, because you don't really know what she's going to do. I mean, Ock really has them ready. He doesn't mess around in these situations, especially in these big stakes races. So I think that she could be heard from. And Tactical Mounds is another one I think you could throw on deeper tickets just because she might not class up to some of these, but she loves this racetrack. And again, on days like this, you're going to get prices at horses that like the track who could trip out. It lends itself to prices. So Special Way on top for me, but I do think there's other ways you can go in exotics for sure.
Well, Mike, nobody's mentioned Bond yet, but don't worry, I will jump in there. It is King Oka, a man in green, the mean machine. We are going to go with Special Way over Bond, and we're gonna have to find out. Mike, we got to talk Thomas Fenson. Maybe I'll do it in the back paddock some other week. We got to get some shoeing information because I suspect there could be some interesting things Team Sponstead may be able to offer about some of their contenders here on this Hambletonian Day card, but. Special Way is definitely one I'm looking to. I agree with you. She's been facing a lot of the boys as of late. She's been facing some tough fields. Obviously, some issues through the stretch there associated with the breaker last time out there in the maturity. In fact, charted with the IM impedance, which is a pretty rare call given to the chart caller from the judges, but definitely did have some issues for her through the stretch. But I think she rebounds here. I think she wins. Bond I have in for second. And, Cheyenne, we'll go to you next because, again, we're saving Garnet. We know what he's going to give us. But not a lot of love to MM's Dream so far. The morning line favorite from the rail.
Yeah, and I'm not going to give her any love either. I went with Special Way as well. Last two starts, drew the outside, had post 7, then had post 9. I then had in that graduate, like you guys said, went against the boys and only got beat by a nose there. I just really think drawing closer to the inside should just be really sharp here. I did put MM's Dream in my number 2 slot just because she's been really good, has hit the board in all 8 of her starts. So I feel like that mare just can't be ignored, but I'm going with Special Way just because Aki has a way of just getting these horses really sharp for these races. So that is where I am personally headed as well.
All right, Garnet, the time is upon us. Lay it on us. Warwizinia, 12-1, perfect post 5 draw.
There's always a crazy Canadian on here that gives you Warwizinia, but you only have the sane one on tonight. And I'm not going to give you Warwizinia. I don't think she has a shot, maybe for 3rd or 4th. I like Bond. Her best race wins this. And the more I look at this program, the more I think the pace scenario favors her. Ogie's going to send her. You know that. And I think she's going to be 1st or 2nd at the head of the lane. And I also am hoping and thinking that she could drift up to maybe 7-2, 4-1 because she hasn't started this year. So I'm going to take a shot with her, especially if I get that kind of a price that I just mentioned.
She's probably the 3rd choice easily. I mean, I don't see how she's favored over Special Way, over MM's Dream. I think that there'll be a lot of Call Me Goo money come there because she's going to get mentioned a lot in the coverage. So she's going to take a lot of money. Bond's going to be, I think, higher than that 5-2 morning line. I'm not sure. I just don't see that that's this horse's favorite here.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I am fascinated. This is the first time I'm really getting a chance to kind of take a look at this final program with some of these morning lines. So this one here, I think this is a tough race. I think it's almost one of those classic conundrums as a line maker that whatever horse you put is too high of a number, they're going to bet down. And in this case, I think it is Call Me Goo. I think 8-1's a little high, but if you put somebody else at 8-1, like a Special Way or even a Bond, then I think they bet her down. So I think it was kind of a tough line to make, to be fair. All credits to John Rouse, who's done a great job so far with these lines. But yeah, I will be curious to see what this board looks like and the complexion of it by post time. And obviously that may dictate some of our wagers depending, as there is a lot of different wagers you can jump into on the card that we'll discuss later on this evening. We're going to put Jess Gotten on the spot, and hopefully she can give us all of those wagers. But Jürgen Lindgren is listening in from Sweden, and that's really impressive because we got to do math. It was 6-hour time difference. That is 3:30 in the morning, so that is deeply impressive. So we will take a look at race 11, the John Cashman Memorial. This is the open trot. And Cheyenne, it's in this spot where we will find Jiggy Jog as she takes on the boys yet again. And obviously, it doesn't matter to her anything in front of her. She probably could take down some pacers right now. She's taking on everything in front of her as of late.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. She's definitely got the speed here. But I am going against her. I'm going to go with Winner's Bet. Just been really sharp within the last 5 starts. Has won 4 of them. Post 11 was just really hard for that horse to overcome in the Hambletonian maturity. But I'm just going to try him again here because I think he has a really good shot of getting it done. So I'm actually going to go against Jiggy Jog S. I am going to go with Winner's Bet.
Ray, I that's a little more creative than I feel like I could go for. I kind of like it's academic if anybody to be Jiggy Jog, but I can't get around Jiggy Jog. Can you?
I'm rebooting right now. Please give me a second. I think, I wonder what Jiggy Jog's truly going to go off inside of this race, right? Like, we know how good she is, and on top of that, how often has she raced against the boys? If from recent memory, I think she may have faced the boys once or twice, and so that does give you maybe like a 3-5, 4-5 versus the 1-5 that she has been just against the girls. But just what really separates her in my mind from some of these other horses is the motor that she has. She was behind the speed in a 58 front half and motored home, lifted flight so effortlessly to go and win inside of, what was that, the 6-pack? Yeah, that was the 6-pack, her most recent win. With time off, she just gets better. It seems like she's even better than she was last year. I don't think if it's a sprint between her and someone else down the lane, anyone can really kick past her. And so that's the tough thing with this race. She does seem like she's much better than everyone else, but I will say price-wise, I wonder if Hasty Bid's a good use for the exotics, even though he's been consistently getting involved in the underneath spots. That might drive his price down a bit along with the inside draw. And then, Winner's Bet is obvious. This is really, in my mind, a test for him, because if he can beat a horse like Jiggy Jog, then that probably stamps him as one of the best trotters in the division, because so far he's kind of implied that. He was able to go a sub 50 mile at the Meadowlands when the rain came down. So very clearly the speed is there, but does he have the guts to go and tackle a horse like Jiggy Jog? That's really the question inside of this race. And I don't really know what the price is going to be on a horse like him and whether that's worth it.
Mike, for Jiggy Jog, it will be just her 3rd start of the year. We'll be against the boys. She hasn't raced since June 29th. Obviously we know how good Team Sponstead is at preparing these horses for these kind of races, putting them in these spots, but I suppose maybe we've pointed out a couple things. If you wanted to take a swing against her, maybe.
Yeah, I am. I like it's academic. Obviously, huge fan of the horse. If anybody that's watched these podcasts over the last few years know that I really have a love affair with this horse, even when he wasn't really all that well regarded. But he was, made 950,000 last year and came back this year. Just 2 starts so far, but you were up there and saw him win the Spirit of Massachusetts race with a 51-2 mile, 2nd start of the year. Now back to the Meadowlands. We know he loves this racetrack. We know that he's very, sharp for Hambo days. I think that this horse is ready. I think that you're going to get a fair enough price, because after Jiggy Jog, Southwind Tyrian will take money. Winner's Bet will take money. Venerate always seems to take money. So, and Ray mentioned Hasty Bid. I would expect that horse to take a little bit of money too. Always seems to take money against these horses. I think it's academic is in the 7-2, 4-1 range, and I'm very much on board with that.
Garnet, I think Jiggy Jog is just a little too tough to beat, so that's why I had to have her on top. But I said if anybody else, it's academic for me, because I will say, again, probably biased me from being there, but working a Spirit of Mass broadcast, interviewing Dave Miller after that race, and hearing some thoughts via text from Ron Burke, he was very methodical even before the race in the Spirit of Mass. He knew he wanted to get him that race, and then he lined up, here's Hambo Day, then here's the race in Kentucky. Like, he knows where he wants this horse, and he wanted the spot next, and here he's got it.
Yeah, I think he got the best trip in that race, though. The horses on front just killed each other early, right? There's a 29 last quarter, and he's first up. Listen, he grinded out the win. He's a great horse. I don't want to take too much away from him, but I think the trip favored him. The one that I could possibly see beating Jiggy Jog is their stablemate. I mean, Oki's going to send Southwind Tyrion, and he can get freaky when he's on the lead and he gets unchallenged. So, your stablemates, at what point is Jiggy Jog going to make her move? If she just grinds first over and allows Southwind Tyrion to cut a slower pace, he might be able to hold her off in this case. So I had Jiggy Jog on top, but if Southwind Tyrion was somehow drifted up to like 4-1 or something, I might just bet him to win instead.
Well, I have a quick thing with Jiggy Jog, and maybe Jess, you might remember this. Have they pulled the shoes on her this year yet? Does anyone know? Because I imagine they probably would on Saturday, and that would
Where's
also.
Thomas when we need him?
I know,
Thomas
right?
here.
I'm pretty sure no, Ray.
Yeah,
we miss you,
well,
Thomas.
because I feel I only bring that up because since Garnsdale mentioned Southwind Tyrion, let's not forget that he was able to uncork that sub 50 mile not because of, but that was a night they happened to pull his shoes, and the track had moisture in it.
Yeah,
He likes a wet track too.
literally just downpoured before the Crawford farm. So.
Didn't he win the Breeders' Crown in the slop too last year?
I think he did, but his shoes
huge
might
mile?
have been on. I think he had on a nice pair of like Jordans, if I remember correctly. It caught my eye especially. But no, it's just worth considering because Jiggy Jog's gone 150 is her fastest mile this year in just 2 races. If they pull the shoes, you can imagine she probably has another second or 2.
Well, Jess John Rallis won some Southwind Tyrion as well, and he mentions, did we forget about that monster mile in the slop without the shoes? Jess, it must be nice to be Team Sponstead. You got a pair of Breeders' Crown champions squaring off in this race.
Yeah, and I think you could probably go with either. I'm going to stick with Jiggy Jog in here. Obviously, her race in the Cutler was very impressive against the boys, and then she had, over a month away from the races. She come up with a big, effort in the 6-pack. Yeah, it was a shorter field. Yeah, it was the mares, but one of you had already mentioned, it was a 58 and 2.5, and she, she did all the work on the outside to sprint home in that race in 25 and 1. She's coming back into this race with fresh legs. She's getting post advantage. But realistically, I just think her ability to track down horses is something we have not seen on the pacing or trotting side in quite some time, in my opinion. And quite honestly, she doesn't have to be second over to do it. She can be first over. And I don't think it really takes that much out of her. Like in the 6-pack, she couldn't even blow out a candle, it looked like, in the winner's circle. So I think she's going to be really tough to beat in here. I agree with what people are saying about Southwind Tyrion, but I'm going to stick with the other Aki's Fan Citrini, the mare, Jiggy Jog.
And I will say before we turn the page here, what Garnet said about it's academic and the spirit of mass. Trip really did work out. I mean, look, that always seems like they get to that quarter fast at Plain Ridge, but 25 and 4 for Logan Park in a trot race was something pretty spectacular there, and then the 54 and 1/2. So it did set up well, but it did seem like he took a nice step forward in his second start off of the bench. So races 12 to 15 are the final 4 we're discussing here, and they are part of a pick 4 sequence, and we're going to build up to the Hambo, so that means we're going to go in this weird order here, so try to stick with us as we're going to start our attention with race 13, New Jersey Sire Stakes final, the 2-year-old filly trotters, and Jess, you've obviously seen these horses come through the Sire Stake program there at the Meadowlands, these inexperienced 2-year-old trotters. We're going to start with you.
I'm just going to start off by saying I love babies. I love breaking them. I love training them down and taking care of them and watching them, develop. I hate handicapping them. I'm not a fan of handicapping 2-year-olds. I'm not a fan of handicapping 2-year-old trotters. But I will say we do have a pretty deep group of, New Jersey Sire Stakes on both sides, the pacing and the trotting side. That being said, with the fillies in here, I think there's 4 or 5 of them that you could probably throw on your ticket that are all going to take money. And quite honestly, I like 3 of the Nancy Tactor trainees, 5, 6, and 7, Teresi, Champagne Problems, and Kendra. I mean, I feel like you could put all 3 of those on your ticket. They're all probably going to take, pretty nice action on the tote board. Champagne Problems to me might be, a little bit ahead of the other 2, just with the way she's been racing. She come from well off of the pace in the first leg of the New Jersey Sire Stakes. She did it on the front end of the first leg of the kindergarten, and then the second leg of the New Jersey Sire Stakes. So I would put Champagne Problems above Teresi and Kendra, but those two as well have been racing and have showed me a lot of speed and a lot of tactics in the 2-year-olds. I feel like the 2-year-olds, it's not just who wins the races, it's how they finish up the miles and how they can handle certain, instances throughout the race, how they handle it. And I think those 3 alone have handled everything so professionally so far.
Well, Ray, Nancy Tactor having 4 of the 10 in here. And again, we're discussing the race right now. That'll be after the Hambo. So if all things go as planned, she should be pretty happy regardless heading into this race, assuming things go to plan, which worse than plan never really go in the same sentence, as Dave Brower would say. But,
And you'll find out my opinion later on, but not good. But I think she has a good chance inside of this race. My one thing I wonder, though, is how hot Kendra really is going to be on the win pool, because you look at her mile 2 starts ago, she won with such ease and wasn't really asked to go that fast of a mile, and she went and just did all of that herself. Now, she did have a fairly slow second quarter to be able to make that move to the front, and the leader was more than willing to just let her go. And then that just, in a way, kind of turned into a perfect trip for her. But in my mind, and especially with the 2-year-olds, there is a factor of a speed threshold. There are some babies that are ready to go 155. But then if you start getting to 154, 153, the cream very quickly just starts rising, and you get a clear separation between who can do it, who can't do it. Kendra has already established herself to be one who can do it, and she finished under a death grip in her most recent start, in part because she got caught behind a tiring horse, had to maneuver around, was already in tight quarters with her stablemate, kind of keeping her locked into the inside. And so Yannick was able to just give her a little bit of room late. She was able to secure third inside of that most recent race. If anything, I feel the handiness that she showed in navigating that trip to finish third is just an asset inside of a race like this. And plus, she can leave the gate. So that outside post might not necessarily be the worst thing in the world for her. But, as you know, a lot of people on this panel know, if you're watching the races and you see a driver finish with what looks like is plenty left in the tank, then you can probably bet that horse is going to take a lot of money next out.
Mike, our man Thomas Svensson saying Jiggy Jog has raced with shoes, we believe, those first 2 starts. Not 100%, he says, but I'm also that opinion. I believe that's correct. So we'll see what comes out on Saturday. But how about this Sire Stakes final?
Kendra for me, but in my pick 4 ticket that I submitted to DRF, I'm going to use all of Nancy Tactor's horses, because when you have 4 horses in a 10-horse race, they can set the race up a little bit. I'm sure that, that's different owners and things like that, but I'm sure that she's going to kind of say, okay, let's get this one here, that one there. And depending on the trip, I do think one of them wins the race. I like Kendra the best, but could I see the other 3 winning? Absolutely. So inside of the pick 4, I think one of those 4 win it, and I'm going to use all 4, and hopefully be like the Chad Brown factor. You're hoping for the best Chad in a thoroughbred race. Well, in here, I'm hoping for the best Nancy.
All right, Garnet, we're calling it good experience, not old age. But I think you've been handicapping longer than 4 of us on this panel have been alive. So what's the secret to races like this, where there's 2 Ocas Fonsteds, there's 4 Nancy Tactors? We got a lot of entries from the same barns in this field of 10.
Yeah, I'm going off the board here, and I'm going to take My Honor on top. I don't think this filly had any chance in her first 2 starts, where they're coming 27 in the last quarter. And she gained ground and, finished second in both starts. There's going to be a price somewhere on this card. I'm using a whole bunch of these horses, these fillies in the pick 4, because to me, this is a bit of a mind-boggling race. To me, I admit I didn't see all these Sire Stake races that everybody has, so I don't have the kind of trip notes in my head. But I'm going to hope to get My Honor home. I don't mind the late driver change to Andy Miller. I think Gingras was listed on 2 of them, went for Kendra, which is logical. But I get Andy Miller. Maybe that doubles my price. Maybe I get 20-1 on this filly from the 8-hole. I think she's got a shot.
John Rowlis, don't you worry. John Rowlis saying just going to dismiss what Lady Landia did on debut, something clearly that I missed in start 2. That's value. He is absolutely correct. That is the absolute best bet I can offer on this card, as Lady Landia. 2 starts ago on debut, kicked in 26-3. Impressive mile there. Clearly something amiss there through the stretch. I thought last time out, and now draws back inside. Hopefully going to be a bit closer to the pace. Big chance to take a step forward, just 3rd start. I agree with John here. It's a 3-6-5-4 for me, Cheyenne.
So it's funny. It's funny that you guys actually eventually brought up Lady Landia. That I actually went 3 deep here. I went with Lady Landia, Champagne Problems, and Kendra. Lady Landia, that debut start was just so impressive. You look at that last quarter and 26-3. And the outside post, I just didn't think was great for this young trotter. So drawing back into the inside, like you said, Edison, I think is a benefit to this horse. Then talking about Champagne Problems, out of the 3 starts, has won 2 of them, finished second, has been racing very consistently. I just felt like you just couldn't count this horse out. And then Kendra showing that mile in 1:53.3, I also thought was really impressive as well. So that's why for me, I had to go 3 deep here, but I had to have Lady Landia in my ticket as well.
I think if you're going to bet Lady Landia, you need to pay attention to how she is on the racetrack, because she never looked comfortable last week. Never once in the post parade, in the score down, and when Aki took her from off of the gate, she never settled. Like she didn't look like the same horse she did the week prior to when she was so dominant. I don't know what her deal was, but she didn't look like the same horse to me last week.
Yeah, good info to pay attention to there on the track. That's why it's good to have someone like Jessel here who obviously sees these races day in and day out there from the Meadowlands. But next, we'll move to the 15th race. Again, we're kind of jumping around here, but we're going to speed through this 15th race to give ourselves plenty of time to talk Hambletonian Oaks and Hambletonian. So, Ray, race 15, Lady Liberty, who you including on the pick 4 ticket?
This in my pick 4, it's a single. I mean, we all know who the best horse is inside of this race, and so I actually think things might get a little divisive as we get towards the Oaks and the Hambo. So I think we should all say the name of this one horse. We're obviously all singling on 3. All right. So after I say 3, we're all going to say the name of the winner of this race.
Ray, there's still a Canadian on this panel.
1, 2, 3. Twin B Joe Fretton.
Grace Hill.
No, you got only one of you. Other one is betting this race. I thought it's on. I don't know how you could take Grace Hill inside of this spot. Look, Twin B Joe Fresh.
You can't. I was kidding.
Oh, see, I forgot that you Canadians make jokes. I forgot that. But I'll keep it short. Twin B Joe Fresh, she's a different horse at 4 than she was at 3. That's something I especially remember Jess pointing out when I believe you were talking to Dexter after he won a race with her, and just how much more muscle she has, how much just more of a presence. Yeah. And so I feel like in our brains, when we're thinking, well, she was second best at Sylvia Hanover, we have to remember that Twin B Joe Fresh very clearly has moved forward from that 3-year-old season. There's still questions on how much Sylvia Hanover has really grown between her 3-year-old and 4-year-old season, in part 2 of just, how the trips have unfolded, the accuracy in terms of how her trips represent her ability. But none of those questions exist with Twin B Joe Fresh. She's handy. She's fast. She knows when to roll. She's rarely had to be fully asked. It's her race to lose.
Mike, if that's Ray's brief, we're really in trouble if he wants to go long.
I know, right? Sylvia, for me, I very much appreciated the driver switch up at Plain Ridge, got the confidence boost. She likes it here, and she's going to be probably 3 to 4 times better price than Twin B Joe Fresh. If you can get Twin B Joe Fresh beaten in this pick 4, then I think that it makes it much, much, much better, much more attractive. And she's shown that she's very capable, especially last year. Now this year, not so much yet, but let's see what she does here with Tetrick over the big track. Shout out to Rod Adams Jr., our buddy. He has AVF clearing here. She's going to be 100 to 1, but I'm always rooting for Rod to get a piece. So shout out to Rod here.
I would like to argue that Sylvia Hanover might not offer a better price on account of if she loses. I just want that also to be on the record as well.
We'll see what happens. She definitely will be a better price. I can guarantee you that.
But I feel like a lot of people are also going to be kind of enamored with the fact that, ooh, she bounced back. Ooh, she's coming back. She's the same one.
She was still 3 to 1 versus, and Twin B Joe Fresh was, 1 to 9 last time they faced each other. So, I mean, what, you don't think?
Well, these are different conditions because now there is that mystique of, well, maybe Sylvia Hanover has all of her bad things corrected. That's going to drive her price down.
There's other horses that are going to take money. Silver Label take money. Grace Hill take money.
Not as much. Not as much.
We'll see.
All right, Garnet, our Ray brief 4-minute discussion has derailed us again, so we'll trust you to get us back on track, and we're counting on Sylvia out of the Canadian.
Jeez, I hate to agree with him, but I'm totally on board with Ray. I'm not.
Woo!
Listen, I think Sylvia Hanover wins that race or Harris Philly with Bob driving. She won. She beat an inferior field. Twin B Joe Fresh wasn't in the race. She was absolutely supposed to win that race. I don't put a lot in the driver change, honestly. And I hope she takes a lot of money because I'm also going to single Twin B Joe Fresh, who's only lost so this year, came in a condition race in her first start, which was obviously a tightener.
All right, Cheyenne. Well, I will add the other vote for Sylvia Hanover here. I'm not quite the same believer as Mike when it comes to the driver switch. I will not knock Bob McClure here. I think Tim Teacher was in an obvious spot at 1-5 there at Plain Ridge. So, that part to me is maybe not the reason to bet her, but I just think she will offer value against Twin B Joe Fresh. So 2 votes each way. Where are you going?
So I actually went too deep here. I went with Sylvia Hanover and Twin B Joe Fresh. Sylvia Hanover was just, very impressive at Plain Ridge. And Twin B Joe Fresh has just been consistent. You see all those ones in the program, right? So for me, I had to go too deep here just because with these kind of races, there's a price somewhere. You never know what can happen. And these 2 horses, I just felt like you couldn't really pick in between them. If I wanted to cut down my ticket, I would have just singled Twin B Joe Fresh for sure. But I felt like I had to include Sylvia Hanover in here as well.
Jess?
I'm agreeing with Mike. I'm going to stick with Sylvia Hanover. And I take nothing away from the way Bobby drove this mare in her 2- and 3-year-old season. I think she's the mare she is because of the way they got along. I do like that she responded to Timmy. And I think maybe she just got so comfortable with the way Bobby drove her and has been driving her that when Teacher put an aggressive steer on her, I know she was bet down to 3-1 and she wasn't facing Twin B Joe Fresh, but the fact that he put an aggressive steer on her at Plain Ridge and she responded, I think it's going to help her. I think her drawing inside of Twin B Joe Fresh, I think Teacher sticking with her now, second time him, I think that's going to only help her. And I think there's so much room to build off of that. So I'm going to stick with Sylvia Hanover. And I've been with Twin B Joe Fresh since the first time she's beat Sylvia this year. Since the first time she's beat Sylvia this year. Like Ray said, I think she's a tank. I think you can't take anything away from her. But that being said, I really think that the driver change to Timmy and the way that she responded with him on her has really excelled her.
All right, comments quickly. Kevin Plouch is starting at the top, says, lol. I think that's probably in response to something Ray said. Brad Trebotica says she's not different. She's always been a machine. I believe that's a reply to Twin B Joe Fresh because the comment Ray just flashed up there from him. Twin B Joe Fresh, right down the road, catcher if you can. Don Rallis says Oak Grove doesn't pay you enough, Ray. Kevin Plouch wants to know if Oak Grove pays you at all. And San Han says Sylvia was good last start. Should give Joe Fresh a run for her money. Can't forget about Grace Hill, who's starting to get back on form. Garnet said it, so she probably will win now. So, but regardless, there's a significant discrepancy, in our group here compared to the morning line, or at least how we think it might go. 3 votes each. So be curious to see if Mike's thinking 3-4 times better price, which I kind of thought too. We'll be curious to see how close they might be at post time if everybody's going this direction.
I also think there's going to be more lead center inside than there has been talking about Twin B Joe Fresh. I feel like someone said that she's going to go right down the road, I feel like she might have a run for her money with a few of the horses to her inside that like to be forwardly placed.
Yeah, I would agree. I think she might have a little bit tougher time if she wants that lead, like she has, if that's the way she's going to do it. We'll find out. As I guess the Astros have won, according to Kevin Ploucha, so that's good to know. Race 14, the $525,000 Hambletonian Oaks 99th edition 3-year-old filly trotters, and Garnet, we heard Ray mention it earlier about kind of some different barns winning these eliminations. You and I have been editing stories here all night with our Clyde Journalism Workshop students, and that's been kind of fun. I mean, I can personally speak that my students been writing about Annie Stobie and Alyssa Hanover, and obviously hearing some of her quotes throughout the week. It's not the same. Nothing against the Nancy Tactor or Ron Burke, and they're square off in the Hambo, but smaller barn
Barnsdale, it's just to you. He very clearly is just pitching it to you. You love working with the kids.
I'll keep going. This is a really good race, isn't it? From a wagering standpoint, I think there's a number of ways you can go. On my pick 4, I'm 3 deep. I had Alyssa Hanover as a slight choice. She was really impressive last week in the elimination. It looked like she was going to get caught, and she resurged at the end. I think she's got a big shot from the rail. Armelina, I think another one that was very impressive. And Edison kind of talked me a little bit into buy around. And when you look at her, just look at her chart line, it kind of explains itself, right? She come 27 flat in the third quarter just to get in contention, just to challenge. Now the next quarter goes 26-3. What do you think is going to happen? Of course, she's not going to advance into that after being first up in 27 flat her own quarter. So I think the price drifts on her. She always seems to take money, and I think she'd be a much better price. So I think, she might be a half decent win bet. I went 1-3-6. I'm kind of tossing Allegiant because it looks really impressive on paper, but I don't see her getting the same trip. And, she's a really good filly, but for this race, I kind of don't like her. So I have USTA Hanover on top, and I'm going to go 1-3-6 in the pick 4 eventually.
All right, Ray, whatever part of me may or may not have been lost through technology issues, we'll let you finish it because you're the one that started this concept. Small barns, all three of these trainers. Nice to see them get their opportunities. And obviously, Garnet and I have seen that in the quotes that we've worked with our students here tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's really going to help that I bring that up and then I like a Marcus Melander horse inside of this race. But if I'm being honest, this is a race where if I kept looking at it, I think one of the arteries in my brain would burst. It is such a hard race to handicap, especially not seeing how the board is going to play. I was on the phone with John Rallis about this because I did not envy him having to make a morning line for this race. I can assume USTA Hanover probably is going to take play with a 10-race win streak on the line. I don't really know if the pylon post is the best spot for her, but otherwise, we have two other eliminations where they were won off of perfect trips. Allegiant never got challenged. Armelina was able to get an easy lead because they crawled to the first quarter in 28 seconds, and she's shown that if she's able to get like a weak quarter or something like that, she can power home and go a pretty quick mile. So I'm not really a believer in two of the elimination winners. USTA Hanover still has her room to prove herself to be good, but I don't even think if she's a slight favorite at like 8-5 inside of a race like this, that's worthwhile. You're probably going to get much more interesting prices on horses like Buy Around. I like Date Night Hanover inside of this race because I was especially surprised to see Dexter Dunn picked her over French Champagne, because when I watched the eliminations, I thought French Champagne showed a lot more late than Date Night Hanover did. But in terms of who I think is the better horse, I feel like Date Night probably is a slightly better horse than French Champagne. And, in terms of how the race sets up, maybe Date Night gets smoother sailing. She gets a trip into the race. And then the question then there is if another price is in play, Buy Around. I feel like she's another one to watch for the equipment because Knoll has not been afraid to pull the shoes on days like this. And very clearly, she did not get her trip when blitzing last out. She's very lucky to be here in the final because she got in just with having the highest lifetime earnings. And if they get that little extra bit out of her with something like pulling the shoes and she gets that second over, third over toe, we saw how explosive she was last year. I remember especially a race at the Red Mile where it seemed like it was impossible that she was going to come from second over and win. And she still did it because she's a good horse. When I saw 12-1 on the morning line, I immediately got salivating a little bit too. There's a lot of room for prices inside of this race. All to say, I think the Elim winners are especially vulnerable.
Yeah, Jess, as we discussed this morning line a bit, I mean, this was a tricky one for sure. USTA Hanover, off of the big win, probably gonna, actually, let's finish the thoughts here. Kevin Plodgett says the low was at Garnsdale participating in Ray's game of saying the winner all at once only. And Derek is saying, Derek Givner or Dear F. Harness that always give us good info, pull the shoes, don't buy around if all is right. Maybe that's more reason for Garnet to go there. But Jess, talking this morning line, first of all, because my pick, because I already sent you yesterday. So, I'm a proud supporter of French Champagne, but your picks against, which is interesting. So I think that clearly affects the morning line right then and there. And the other big one I'd have a qualm with is Allegiant. I feel like Allegiant, one of these Elim winners has to get a little ignored on the board. I think it's Allegiant, but curious to see how this one shakes out.
Well, I listened to your roundtable last week about there was so much more for USTA Hanover to show. There was about 50-50. Everywhere you read or you saw or you talked to, 50% of the people were like, oh, she's the best. Or 50% of the people said she had so much more to prove because she hasn't faced anything yet. I was the 50% that believed in her. Nobody really was able to get to her, whether it was the top horses. And quite frankly, the rest of the 9 horses in this field aren't standout mares either. There's not somebody that's been undefeated that Alyssa Hanover's been, zigzagging away from in the stakes company. Last week she had Buy Around look her directly in the eye in that third panel, and she sprinted away from her. And then she had Drawn Impression coming out on the outside, and she continued to fight her off. I think she's the real deal. I think she wins the Hambletonian Oaks. I think she's very handy. She's my top pick in the Oaks, obviously. But I agree with you with the Legion. I think she's going to be overlooked. That being said, I think she's another filly that's very handy off of the gate. Yeah, she got things her own way because she was, on the front. Scotty may have backed it down a little bit there. I think French Champagne came a little too late first over into her. But that being said, she was very convincing in the Moneymaker at Scioto Downs. She was 4th in the Del Miller. Maybe not the most appealing line ever. But Armelina and Buy Around both kind of sprinted away from the field. I think she's just so handy off of the gate that might give her a little bit of advantage to a few of the other horses. And I do give credit to Armelina as well. I think people forget how good of a 2-year-old season she had. She won an elimination of the Goldsmith Maid. Her problem, or I guess the disadvantage to her is she has to get away on the right foot trotting. And she's done that the last 2 starts, but she's a little bit too inconsistent for that. For people to want to maybe, back her 100%.
Mike, I know we say it all the time on these shows, but it really is true, especially on a big race like this. We know there's going to be a lot of money in the pool. Obviously, on a day like this, with everybody involved, some of it, maybe more serious money than others. So we have decisions to make. And I think this is a race where, obviously, when it comes to the pick 4, our tickets are already in. But if you're playing this race to win, exactas, tries, I think you want to look at the board and really get a feel for how accurate or inaccurate this morning line is ultimately, and regardless of your opinions, going into it, where these odds ultimately settle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And well, as far as the morning line, I mean, the 3 elimination winners are going to be 1, 2, 3 as far as the choices in the morning line. I mean, that's an obvious thing that's going to happen. There's really no way around that. I don't like any of them to win the race. I mean, they all got easy trips in the eliminations. They all can't get the same trip in the final, the early move and dominate the race on the front end. If last year having Hanover won the Oaks from the parking lot. Okay, now that was a giant closers bias racetrack, but irregardless, they went quick early and the closers came. I think that they go quick early here also because all these horses want the same trip. And Alyssa Hanover, I think they're going to be aggressive with that horse. And there's no way that other horses aren't going to take shots at her. So I like War We Michelle, easy for me to say. Thomas said last week she had throat surgery leading up to the elimination. So, and then she shows up and kicks 26-1. She won the Breeders' Crown last year. She was a monster at the end of last year. I think that she could be coming into form. She's going to get the perfect trip in this race. She's going to be able to fly. She has the class to beat these horses. I just think she needs a little bit of cover and some pace in front of her, and she's going to be difficult to hold off. So she's 8-1 morning line. I could see somewhere close to that on the board just because of the elimination winners taking money. I think Buy Around takes money. French Champagne will take money in the race. That horse always seems to get bet. I just think it's the closers in here. I want Wormy Michelle. I want Date Night Hanover. I agree with that one. And I'm sure John probably still likes Drawn Impression. She's a bit of the key to the race because what does she do from that 10 post? She showed a little speed last week. She could heat the pace up even more. I like it better if she does. Give me the closers in the race. That's what I want to
say. I want to say with Drawn Impression, though, I feel like part of her drive is going to be in part play off of how Private Access does in the Hambo a couple races before, because James McDonald also has that outside post with that play trainee. And if maybe leaving doesn't go well for that horse, that might hurt the confidence a bit, force them to maybe try a more methodical drive from out there. But I just wanted to point out, you said War We Michelle is a monster. Let's not forget that she won the Breeders' Crown with the easiest trip up the open stretch, holding off horses that went longer miles.
She still won though.
I recognize that. I want to correct the record on that front, but then add to it, when you're talking speed inside of this race, another factor to it, Andy Miller picking up French Champagne. French Champagne can leave the gate. And I kid you not. I know Yannick Gingras is great off the gate, but I would argue that Andy Miller is one of the next best gate drivers at the Meadowlands. And French Champagne, I imagine, wants to go forward. Her best chances are going to be sitting close. And so that could also just add on to the speed scenario, like you're saying.
All right,
Derek
so
agrees with me. Since put that up, I want that up and left up. Leave that up the rest of the entire podcast.
Actually, no, we have to. We unfortunately
Make it a banner.
We unfortunately have to leave up this Skoshi comment that just wants you all to gesticulate.
With Mike, and maybe Skoshi's correct, and maybe Mike is just impacted by Ray's dramatic hand talkings. Maybe that's how we got ourselves there. But Cheyenne, wrap us up here. Hambletonian Oaks.
I went 3 deep here. I think this is a kind of you can make a case for almost any horse in this field, honestly. Elisa Hanover looking for that 11th win, looked good in the Oaks. One thing I will say though, it's really these aren't machines. These are race horses. You know, it's hard to keep them sharp week after week after week. And you even looked at Bulldog Hanover 2 years ago. You know, he was going for that 12th win at Red Mile, and that's when he got beat by Allywag Hanover. So this is going to be the time where is she going to show that vulnerability, or is she going to come through and win the Oaks? What I had for second was Allegiant. I've been watching this horse since she was at the Meadows. I totally agree with Jessica here. She's very handy. She just glides over the ground. She won the Alem by 4 lengths. I just really like her. I just have a hard time kind of throwing her off my ticket entirely. I feel like she's a heavy consideration. But then also too, Edison, I agree with you. With French Champagne, has been really sharp, closed really well in her elimination. So for me, I went 3 deep here. I went 1, 4, and 7.
Yeah, a lot of horses in consideration for me. French Champagne, the top choice here. Alyssa Hanover underneath Warwick Michelle. I'll agree with Michael on that one. And the buy around, I know Garnet. I almost talked Garnet into him yet. I've only got the horse 4th. But yeah, I agree. Open race. I think opportunities there. As we go to race 12, saves enough time here to talk about the big one, the Hambletonian, the 99th edition of the Hambletonian. Next year, a big banner year with the 100th edition. This is the final for the 3-year-old Open Trotters. $1,050,000 on the line. And Jess, you've been, of course, treated to Carl, TCI, a lot of these battles there at the Meadowlands. And, next year we're going to ask you to dig into your pocket, hopefully. If we could just get $450,000 more, $1.5 million Hambo sounds better than $1.05 million. That's a tough one.
I didn't buy a 2-year-old trotter. I bought a 2-year-old pacer, so that's not happening. Somebody can fork up that $300,000 and make the Meadowlands case $1 million. I'd be for it.
Well, who are you going to side with in this year's Hambo?
Why did you have to go with me first?
You're a local expert. We want to hear it first.
I picked against TCI last week before I had read the article about Ronnie making a few changes to him. Like a whole, I think he was quoted saying something like they did pretty much a physical on the horse, found a few changes. They fixed him. They had a few dots of borium, I think they said, on his shoes. I think that's the best that horse has looked maybe in his whole life, all season, definitely. I went and saw both of those horses today. The Meadowlands will actually have a piece on them tomorrow posted. Take nothing away from Carl or the rest of the other 8 horses in here, but TCI is going to be my top pick. I really liked how he fought that other horse off late in the stretch. And like Ronnie had said, maybe the front wasn't where he wanted him to be, but he was kind of handed to him. And he looks a lot more manageable this year on the front, or maybe sitting in a hole before moving to the front. I feel like if we go back and watch a few of those replays from last year, he just looked like a bully that didn't really want to cooperate with David. It was more him driving David instead of David driving him. I think he's calmed down a lot. I think he looks really good after the elimination last week. So I'm gonna stick with him. I like post 4 for him as well. I am gonna stick with him. I put Carl in for second. Obviously horses are beatable. We saw that in the Stanley Dancer. His elimination was as good as TCI, as good as TCI's. And then I'm gonna put Private Access in the 3rd spot there. I picked him over TCI last week. I think he only had 2 starts going into that race last week. Now he's going to have post 9. And quite honestly, what driver is hotter than James McDonald right now? It feels like he's just putting horses all in the right spots. He gave him his run for his money last week. I'm sorry, he had 7 starts going into that. It was the other horse that only had a couple. But I thought it was a really good effort. He had been off a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to stick with TCI.
Garnet, again, everything for you and I revolves around our glider journalism workshop this week. So I know you were working with a student who was writing about this thriller in Manila between TCI and Carl. And we got the quote there from Ron Burke. Well, first of all, you and I saw the replay of the Mohawk Million last year, so we know how impressive he can be even after making a break. Private Access also broke in that race for the record. And but the student you were working with, I think we got the quote in there correctly from Ron Burke. I think Nancy Tactor has a nice horse, but I think mine's better.
No, he didn't say that. He said she thinks she has the best horse. I think I have the best horse. Let's go. Right? That's what he said. So I guess we're calling it the melee at the Meadowlands this Saturday. I don't want either one of those favorites in this race. I don't think Highland Kismet has been tried at all since he won in 151-3 at Mohawk. This horse has not been put into a race at all. And I think it's by design. I think this is the goal. He come home at 26-1 in that race. The other one I like is Sig Sauer because Sig Sauer surged. He zigzagged and surged and actually outfinished Highland Kismet. These are the two horses I want on my pick 4 ticket. I'm also using Carl because I'm going 3 deep here. I think Carl's the better of the two. Carl was the most impressive winner of the race. If if there's no racing in this race and there's no big challenger, if he either makes the front or sits first over, he obviously the most probable winner. But I think they're going to race, and I want Highland Kismet or Sig Sauer to get in my pick 4. Those are the two I'm concentrating on here.
Greg Wenning, one of the camera guys here at the Meadowlands, Jess, he wants to know whether or not you should get a couch for the set. That'd be pretty good, actually, right?
I agree.
And Greg
Would
will
be
be
way better on my back.
And Garnet, Greg, I believe, don't misquote this, but I believe he's joining us this Friday at Giants training camp in the morning when we're with the workshop students, which surprised me because he is a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan. But I suppose he just wants to check out some football, so that's fair. Ray, I suppose that was signs of approval from you for Highland Kismet.
Approval followed by immense disappointment. Not anything against Sig Sauer. I don't know what kind of price you're going to get on him because it seems like every guy I know, and I also know guys like Mike, and he's going to say this too. He liked what he saw from Sig Sauer. I feel like everyone liked what they saw from Sig Sauer. And I know Carl's still going to take money. TCI is still going to take money. Kismet, hell, he's going to take money. He's like one of 2 Canadians inside this race, so half their GDP is going to be flooded into the pools. But I still feel like Sig Sauer potentially goes off an underlay inside of this race. I'll echo.
So what's a fair price for him then? If you think he's an underlay,
well, I was about to echo the fair odds article that I did for Horse Racing Nation, where I did say I think 12-1 is probably fair on Sig Sauer, but
he's not going to be that high.
Well, that's why they're fair odds, because I think that's fair, and if they're not, then you don't bet him. Because I feel like that's just the chance he has inside this race. If he drew inside, different conversation. Post 8, that puts him into a precarious spot that he has not really yet shown himself to overcome. But I want to echo what I said about this race from that article, which is that this is the moment that Carl crosses the Rubicon. This horse, from the moment that he stepped out onto the track, has had this Hambletonian bug that he's been bitten by. And of course, these are connections that are real familiar with being in this spot and are also familiar with the type of horse that is needed to be able to win inside of a race like this. But I had this sneaking feeling that if he was going to win this race, it would have to be in some way where he'd have to earn it. And the way that this race drew, he got the pylon post. He's not the fastest horse off the gate. Other horses are going to be out sprinting him to the first turn, at least based off of what we've seen him do. This is in part goes into he has to show himself to be great. If he really wants the front and to get the front immediately, he's going to be faster than the other horses. Do I think that he is? I think he has to prove that. If he gets caught off guard and has to go first up, I don't think he's going to survive that type of trip either. I know he did against Situationship, but Yannick was real good at when he decided to make that move, and also was real good at remembering Ox Fenstead would probably park him. So he waited until Situationship probably was going to kind of be on fumes, want to get a little bit of a braven up, and went forward, won that race in 50-2 and a lifetime best. I still think if he is the Hambletonian horse that the connections say he is, especially with how it's drawn, there's too much stacked against him for the short price that he's going to be worth betting under any circumstance. I like Kismet because there is upside with him. 2 starts ago, he was way further off the gate than he was supposed to be, and he still was able to catch the field and finish within like 3 lengths of the winner. And in the elimination too, This horse made up an impossible amount of ground to make the final. He finished fourth. Sure, he wasn't gaining on Sig Sauer and stuff in the final yards, but Bobby knew he was in the final. He could also see that these other horses were fully extended. Why ask your horse to go that extra step when you know you're not going to go by him? And it's not anything against that horse. He just was in a terrible spot. He gets a good draw he gets bailed out by the draw. He has a chance to get away towards the middle of the pack, maybe work into a second, third over grind. And we're talking Carl having to fight uphill. That could mean fast fractions. That could mean the winner comes from off the speed. And Kismet, he's shown himself when he can get racetrack, he'll roll. He did it in the good times. He can do it here. I think this is a place where if Kismet has to prove himself in the same way Carl does, and he's a better price, I want Kismet.
Ray, out of curiosity, before we move away from you, fair odds on Carl and TCI?
On my Horse Racing Nation article, which you can still find over at horseracingnation.com.
Just shameless plugs.
I had Carl fair odds 7-5. I feel like that's a realistic price between the fact that he still has shown himself to maybe be a horse that could go sub 50 someday, just based off of how tight Yannick is always holding on to him. But that Stanley Dancer race, I think Mike said this earlier, or he might have said it on our hit that we did with PTF. Carl's not invincible anymore. When he was going into this race, before even that Stanley Dancer, he was perceived to be invincible. He has a bottom now, as evidenced by that race. And so I feel like 7-5 is a good representation of if Carl has to fight. We've seen when he's been strained that he's lost. He's going to get strained here. It's tough to really see to what extent and to how much he really would be able to overcome it. TCI, 9-2. I feel like 9-2 is a good price on him. He at least gets a good draw based on how the race could go. But, he's another. I still feel like he has to do one more good race. Last week was an incredible turnaround, but I still probably want to demand a little more on him and not just jump onto a horse off of one race. We all remember when we did that with Warwiezenia, of course.
Cheyenne, who do you like here? The Hambo.
You had your chance and you asked them a follow-up question. No more. Move to the
I know. My fault. I thought I'd just get 7-5 and 5-2.
person.
That's my fault for thinking it'd be that easy.
At the end of the day, the Hambletonian is a hard race to win. We've seen heavy favorites get beat. I mean, you look at 2022, Cool Papa Bell was 50-1, and he won the Hambo. Tactical Approach last year won from Post 10 at 12-1. So this, for me, I think at the end of the day, this is just a hard race to win. There's a lot of different factors that you can play into this. For me, though, I went 3 deep here. Carl and TCI, you cannot leave off your ticket. I think they've proven themselves time and time again. These are really nice horses. They're finally going to go, they're going head to head again. You will have to see, who takes it at the end of the day. But there are other horses in here that you do have to consider. I mean, number 5, Security Protected. I just think this horse, and I'm just going to list you all these different horses and bullet points. I'll give you my final one at the end here. I'll make sure I'm quick so we can get off. But anywho, so Security Protected, from talking to Melander, has just had bad luck. Got stuck behind Carl, was full of trot in the Dancer, has had outside posts the last 2, got interfered with, draws post 5 at the Meadowlands, which is the winningest post. From what I saw from him at the Poconos and that All-Star at the beginning of the year, this horse likes to chase down horses. If he actually gets played into the race, this horse might have a good chance of picking up the pieces and coming at a price. Then you look at Bella's Muscle Hill, was 3rd in the Alems, gets to pick up Scotty Zeron. This is the 3rd, this driver has won 3 Hambos. This is he's the 11th driver to ever do it. So I feel like because of the driver pickup, that's a horse worthy of consideration. 6 Sauer was also quite impressive as well. Was 3rd in the elimination. It has been the only one to beat Carl besides TCI. And I think that horse is really coming into form here. So I think 6 Sauer is also worthy of consideration if you want to add him to your ticket. It depends on how much you're willing to dig out in your pockets, how much you're willing to spend on this pick for. It all depends on you. Then going into private access, as I'm going to agree with Jessica Otten here, is really getting sharp going into that final. Only lost to TCI by a neck. Now, he has post 9, not exactly ideal, but I think this is a post the horse can overcome. So for me, I went with TC, I went with Carl, I went with TCI, but then I also went with 6 Sauer as well.
I also want us to all not forget, I will not stand for this Tony Adams erasure. He also beat Carl. He was 2nd to 6 Sauer. Where is he, by the way? Where is Tony Adams, this horse that beat Carl? Where is he?
Mike Cushing tuning in from Maine, saying this crew does a great job. And, Derek Givner says Carl is a mortal 5-star lock. Mike, I think Carl is as likely to win this Hambletonian as I thought Rebuff was to win before the race 2 years ago. Which is to say, I think he is very, very likely to win. And I agree, he is a mortal 5-star lock. So I apologize deeply in advance to the connections. Uncreative for me. It is Carl over TCI, over Private Access. I will say Bella's Muscle Hill is a little interesting there. You get Scott Z on the bike. Mike, I know how much you like Scotty Z. And, second in the limb. And he picks up a drive here. He didn't have one before. So, it's worth tossing it, I think, at a number. But 1-4-9-6 for me. But Carl is the one for me. And apparently Derek, too. Even though Scotia
Derek might have said that about Green Shoe, too. Just saying.
That's true.
Yeah,
I think
Green
Mike
Shoe was a
had
lock.
forbidden.
Derek thought that one was a lock too, and that didn't happen. I thought Rebuff would win. He did not. Carl, I like the fact that the connections are saying, well, this one has I have the best horse. She has the best horse. That's just going to heat up the pace. I love that they have confidence because the horse I like is coming from behind, and that's 6 Hour, and 4 wins at 2 and 5 starts. And came back, nice prep there on June 29th, and then was able to beat Carl. Now, he was 68-1, but he kicked 26-1 in that spot. Did he get a setup? Yeah, he did get a little bit of a setup, but he still, flew late to win in 50. So, and his second start of the year. And then I think that he would have been closer in the elimination last week at the finish if he'd have been put into the race a little bit earlier. He wasn't. Carl was able to get the jump, but this is a different race here now. And I think we're rooting for superstars. We want either, if Carl or TCI wins this, they'll be looked at as the next superstar in the sport. If Carl isn't already, it would just, put the icing on the cake for him. So if he wins, I'll stand and applaud. I have nothing against the horse. I think that both of these horses have been fantastic, but in a race like this, where they're going for $1 million, they're going to race and they're going to have to earn it. And I just think that 6 Hour, despite the 4-1 morning line, is going to be probably 6-1, around 6-1 in the race. Because especially if Kismet takes money, and with all this wise guy money on Kismet, he hasn't tried.
No, it's on 6 Hour. It's not going to Kismet.
I don't know about that.
Kismet's actually for the genius gamblers. The wise guys are going to be on 6 Hour, but the genius intellectuals are going to be on Kismet.
Well, we'll see about that. I think that probably will be a little bit close in odds, and it's a big race, so other horses will take money. But I want him from the back. I want Carl and TCI to mix it up, and I want him to have his chance in the stretch because I do think that his kick is better than anyone else's in the race. He's lightly raced. He likes to win. I think he's in a great spot, and he's going to get a trip. I don't care that he's outside. He's from the back anyway, so it doesn't matter. The other ones are going to mix it up. I don't want Kismet at all. He has to prove it to me. I realize that he's shown talent, but he always puts himself in bad spots and gives himself trouble, and there's always these excuses. And, yeah, you look at the Woodbine races, but, he wasn't facing the top ones up there. I want nothing to do with him since he's arrived here. He hasn't shown me anything. I know he raced okay in the elimination, but it was just okay. You have to come and beat the top ones here. So I think he's a takeout reducer. I know John likes him. I know some other people, Ray likes him. No, thank you. Not interested. I think it's 6 Hour. If not, I think it's Carl. It's one or the other. I think that's all you need to do to go and pick 4 tickets. So those would be the 2 for me, but I'm hoping to get over 5-1 on 6 Hour. I'm hoping 6 would be better, but I think he's the winner.
All right. Karen Feig, the road director, racing down Freehold Raceway, tuning in, saying, great job, guys. Lots of good points made. Freehold Raceway coming back racing in about 3 weeks' time. Derek Givner had Forbidden Trade second in the Green Show race. Somebody can go back and fact check that if they want. We'll trust him. And John Rowles is saying that was blasphemy, Mike. So there you go. All righty. Second to last order of business. I'm going to make Director Ray Cotolo happy because I know he wants this clip for the In the Money Media social channel. So we're just going to break a fourth wall here and give everybody 15 seconds to offer their top selection in this Hambletonian race. And let's see, Ray, you ready? All right, we'll get ready to roll here. Okay.
Yeah.
This Saturday at the Meadowlands, Saturday, August the 3rd, the 99th edition of the Hambletonian Final. Over $1 million will be on the line. Field of 10 assembled here. It'll go as race 12 of 16. First post time is at 12 noon. Race 12 to Hambo, 4:45 p.m. And Ray Cotolo, who do we like?
I'm on the winner, Highland Kismet, only if he's going to be a good price, because in my mind, he should be around 8-1 inside of this race. I feel like he hasn't shown his best yet. Granted, he has his quirks that he's still getting over with having just 8 races to the name of his entire life. But he gets a second grace now that he gets an inside draw. That inside draw should put him into a tactical spot to work the trip that he needs and give him the opportunity to prove himself, because this is a race where Carl equally has to prove himself, but I think he's going to have too much work to do and have too many targets on his back. He's going to get toppled.
Mike Pribozie, if not, who picks?
Sig Sauer for me in the Hambletonian. I think he's the best closer in the race. I think he's lightly raced, likes to win, 5 wins, 8 starts. He's going to come home 26-1, 26-2 with some of the favorites softening each other up. I think he flies past to win at a fair price, probably 5-6 to 1.
Our local expert, Jessica Otten of the Meadowlands.
I'm going to go with TCI, one of the elimination winners. A few changes made to him heading into the elimination. I don't think he could have looked any better. Word on the street from Ronnie this morning was that he trained very, very good. He come out of the race and training very good. He looks good. I'm going to go with TCI from Post 4.
Cheyenne Christman of U.S. Trotting Association.
For me, I'm going to have to go. I really like Carl. He's out of all of them. He's shown that start in the Stanley Dancer was maybe not great, but out of all of them, he shows to be the least vulnerable one. For me, it's Carl, but I think another one worthy of consideration is Sig Sauer, but I'm going with Carl.
Garnet Barnsdale of DRF Harness.
Highland Kismet showed he could go with these in the good times. His races have been spaced 2 weeks apart since then. Was the fastest closer in the elimination races, and now goes back to a 7-day rotation. And like Ray Cotolo said, I think he gets a better start here from the inside, finds his trip, and scores an upset Hambletonian victory. Bob McClure's second win in the race.
Well, I'm can't get around Carl. I think Carl has obviously been very talented this year. I think he's the one to knock off here in the Hambletonian, and I think Yanni Gingras finally gets himself a Hambletonian victory. And Nancy Tacker goes back-to-back. We'll take Carl in this year's Hambletonian. Again, first post time on the 16-race card this Saturday at the Meadowlands is 12 noon. All right, that should make producer Ray Cotolo happy here. So, Jessica, before we sign off here, we got to give some Pick 4 tickets out. But first things first, we're going to rely on you here, put you on the spot. Give us the wagering menu, the wagering information, promotions, reason to show up on track. We got a Hambletonian ambassador. We've got lots of national TV coverage. I mean, I'm sure you can give us plenty in a minute or two.
I did screenshot the wagering menu because I knew you were going to ask me that question. We do have a Pick 6 getting underway in the first race with a $50,000 guaranteed pool. Races 3 through 7 will have a $75,000 guaranteed Pick 5 pool for 20 cents. 5 through 8 is a 50-cent Pick 4, a 20-cent Pick 7, races 6 through 12. Race 7 and 16 are both 10-cent high fives. Races 9 through 12 is a $100,000 guaranteed Pick 4. Races 12 through 15 is a $125,000 guaranteed 50-cent Pick 4. That is the wagering menu. We have so much going on Saturday night. First, I'll start with Friday. If you want to join the casino, the charity casino night, that's always a great night. It helps out 2 great charities in the Harness Racing Hall of Fame and the SRF Foundation, Standardbred Retirement Foundation. That's Friday night. Saturday, doors open at 10 a.m. The harnessracing.com/fanzone tent will be open from 10 to 3, mostly 10 to noon, with plenty of driver trainer autographs. That will be located in the backyard. We'll have live music starting at 11 a.m. We have a hat contest, a Hambo hat contest. Sign up until 2:30. Carson Kressley will be judging that this year, and he will be leading the post parade on one of his saddlebred horses for the Hambletonian and Hambletonian Oaks. He will also be presenting the trophies. With that, we have $5 admission that gets you a Hambo hat. We have pony rides, best dressed. Come with your best dressed outfit, I guess. I don't know how else to word that. Prizes will be given away. We have a 360 camera this year in the lobby that is free. Carnival rides, games, rock climbing, 16 great races. The Battle of the Masterminds, $10,000 will be given away if you have won throughout this season of Battle of the Masterminds. So plenty going on Saturday.
They got rock climbing this year?
Yeah, I know. I kind of want to try it.
That's I don't think that's ever been there before. That's crazy.
Nope.
All right, Jess, that was a very impressive list. We're just going to bug you for one more thing. TV coverage.
We will be on Fox Sports Network, Big Fox this year from 4:30 to 5, as you saw, going over the races. The Hambletonian is before the Hambletonian Oaks this year. That is because we wanted to get the $1,050,000 Hambletonian on Fox Sports. So that will be 4:30 to 5. There'll be a few other little sprinkled coverages throughout the day. And then the Hambletonian Oaks will be on Fox Sports 1, I believe. I'm just looking for the email from Moira. A few things
It's
got
2, I think. Fox Sports 2.
Yeah, something got mixed around. So we'll have the Hambletonian Oaks on that. CBS will be a recorded show. I believe it plays on Sunday and Tuesday, maybe. Let me look for this email really quick so I can give you all the let's see.
All right, we will take Jess off the spot. We'll bring that back to her when we get to the pick four ticket. We'll let her give that information. But Ray, let's start with you. Give us a pick four ticket. $125,000 guaranteed pool, races 12 to 15.
Yeah, my spreads are in the Oaks and the Hambo. I might foolishly be singling a 2-year-old trotting filly, but I like what I saw from Kendra, and I feel like I have to take a stand somewhere to add some value into the mix. So I single Kendra, I single Twin B Joe Fresh. That's legs 2 and 4, and then in the Oaks, I'm 3, 4, 8, and 9. I forget which horses those are. Wait, that's not right. Am I on the right thing? Go to someone else. I forget what I did. That's the Hambo. Okay, I got the races mixed up. I got mixed up because we always do the Oaks.
Give us numbers.
The Hambo. I have 3, 4, 8, 9 because that's Kismet, TCI. I do use Sig Sauer because I do think he has a chance to win, but just in terms of prices, I think he's going to take money.
Wow, you're using him?
I think so. And then I like the 9 Private Access. I was getting mixed up because I thought that was the Oaks. I'm like, I don't like Armelina inside of this race. In the Oaks, though, I'm 2, 4, 6, 7, and 9. That's Warwi Michelle. I do use Allegiant because, Oak Grove track record holder, got a rep. Buy around. French Champagne, I think, stands a chance, and Date Night Hanover. So that's 3, 4, 8, 9 with 7, with 2, 4, 6, 7, 9 with 7 for 50 cents. That's $10. I leave off Carl.
Mike?
Just Carl and Sig Sauer for the Hambo. All the Nancy Tactors
Mike?
in the 13th race, and 1, 5, 6, 7 there. The Oaks, I like Warmy Michelle, but I want the closers in there. So 1, 2, 6, and 9, and then 3, 7, Sylvia Hanover, and I will use Twinbee Joe Fresh. For me, heavy though, leans big pushes on Sig Sauer, but play some extra tickets with that one, and Sylvia Hanover single in the last also. So use those for presses.
Garnet?
I'm going to show you guys how this is done. Here's my ticket: 138 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 with 1, 3, 6 with 7. That costs $27 for 50 cents, and I'm done.
Well, yeah, you're just giving numbers. People want to know what those
We
numbers
talked about the
are.
horses for 2 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, someone might just be tuning
Oh, yeah,
in, and then they're like, "Who's the one horse he's talking about?" And then they hear Elisa Hanover, they
Garnet,
go, "Okay, I like him."
Garnet, you kept it brief, and Ray still doubled your time somehow. Cheyenne?
It's incredible.
All right, for the Hambo, I'm going Carl, TCI, and Sig Sauer. So that's 1, 4, 8. Race 13, I am going with, give me 1 sec. I just lost. There we go. 3, I'm going 3, 6, 7. So that's Lady Landia, Champagne Problems, and Kendra. Then in race 14, I'm going to also go 3 deep. Elisa Hanover, Allegiant, and French Champagne. So that's 1, 4, 7. And then 15th race, I went with a 3 Sylvia Hanover and the 7 Twin B Joe Fresh at a 50-cent waste at the 50-cent blah blah blah. I can't speak English. All right, it's $27. Let's just get that out of the way. It's 27 at the 50-cent base wager. There you go. Now I can speak English.
Carl with 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to spread the New Jersey Sire Stakes final. 7, 1, 2, 6. Going to take 4 deep as well in the Hambletonian Oaks final. And let's just try singling Sylvia Hanover. Let's be Twinbee Joe Fresh. That's $16 for $1. Jess?
I don't know the math on this because I forgot to actually put together a ticket. So I'm going to use 1, 4, 9 with 5, 6, 7 with 1, 3, 4 with 3, 7.
27.
There you go.
$7.
Math is not my strong suit. Ask Dave Little.
Justin, we figure out TV coverage.
I did. I have it. I have the screenshot right here.
All right.
Okay, Hambletonian on Fox Sports will be from 4:30 to 5. Hambletonian Oaks is from 6 to 6:30 on Fox Sports 1. CBS Network is Sunday, August 4th from 2 to 3 p.m. It's a replay. And Sunday, August 11th from 2 to 3 p.m. That's also a replay. America's Day at the Races, like I had mentioned, we'll have some sprinkled highlights and thoughts throughout the day. That's 1 to 7 p.m. Racetrack Television Network. We will also have a in-house show on YouTube and Facebook Live. As well, the U.S. Trotting will have a Hambletonian pregame show. That's Saturday, August 3rd from 11 to noon. Hosted by Wendy Rosh and Ashley Mayhew. Plus FanDuel TV live on site. That will be with Ashley Mayhew as well. So plenty of ways to watch, obviously, and whatever ATW that you use to bet, you can also use that as well.
All right. Well, as always, hope it's been a great show. Hopefully, we've given you a lot of good information here. Wrapping up, final thoughts here. Scotia says, how many harness racing voices will be at Meadowlands Hambletonian Day? Some of us appreciate you more than the horses for your unquestioned commitment to the game. Jess Otten will be on TV here all day. Garnet, Barnsdale, and I will be with workshop students, showing them writing stuff and video stuff all day around the Hambletonian. Cheyenne Christman works for U.S. Trotting Association. She'll be out here. Mike Pribozie is a good, dedicated fan. Will be coming out to hang out with us. Ray Cotolo is the singular loser who is not yet committed, so we're going to bank on him showing up.
I, if anything, I can guarantee there will be a search party. So that's the most I can say about my Hambletonian whereabouts.
And John Rouse will be there too. He's pumped to see you guys this weekend. Should be a great weekend. It will be an excellent weekend. The greatest day in harness racing this Saturday at the Meadowlands, August 3rd. Again, 16 races on the card. First race post time, 12 noon. Go and play Meadowlands.com. Check out the racing schedule, the wagering format, everything else associated with Hambletonian Day. Again, the big one, the Hambletonian. Race 12 goes at 4:45. The Oaks will go later. Race 14 will go at 6:06 p.m. As always, we thank here at In the Money Media our partnership with the Hambletonian Society and with Meadowlands Racing Entertainment. We hope everyone has a fantastic Hambletonian weekend. Hopefully lots of winning bets. But for now, for Jess Otten, Garnet, Barnsdale, Cheyenne Christman, Ray Cotolo, Mike Pribozie, Edison Hatter, signing off from this episode of the Harness Players Podcast and a special roundtable for Hambletonian weekend. And we hope, again, you have success this weekend. And we'll talk to you next time here on the network.